2020 could be one of the deadliest years in Chicago's history as the number of homicides passed 500 this weekend. At least 10 people were killed and another 40 suffered gunshot wounds this weekend alone. There was also a mass shooting at a pancake house and 2 officers were attacked by teens with loaded guns. Despite the spike in homicides, overall crime in the city has actually dropped, with a 26% dip in thefts and a 19% decline in sexual assaults. So joining me now from Chicago is Shia Kapos. She is the author of the Illinois Playbook for Politico. So Shia, thanks for joining us. An uptick in certain violent crimes, it's not just happening in Chicago. We're seeing it in other cities as well. There's a concern in New York. There's a concern in Philadelphia. But let's talk about what's happening in Chicago. Why do we believe that we're seeing this uptick in gun violence in particular?
It's all about COVID. You've got people stuck at home. Maybe they lost jobs. There's no school, so young people are at home, and they've been at home since March, and school is supposed to start in a few days, and they'll also be doing remote work at home. They don't have after-school programs to go to. So young people who might otherwise be involved in, organized, structured programs from susceptible neighborhoods are now, prey for gangs. And so you're seeing more gang warfare, you're seeing more gun violence as a result of that. And meanwhile, like you said, other crimes have gone down also because of COVID, because there are fewer break-ins to homes, because people know that residents are staying at home. So you're seeing less of that. You're seeing less of crime in public places because so many public buildings are closed. But gun violence is up. It's on par with 2016 when that was the highest it's been in 2 decades. And to solve that, 4 years ago, they created, the city and community created some 4,000 jobs for young people. And maybe after COVID passes and some structure returns, we'll see another drop. Until then, everybody's just, trying to enforce some new programs, neighborhood programs to get a handle on it all.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the Chicago police force has a brand new superintendent, David Brown. He's only been there a couple of months. His predecessor, Charlie Beck, admitted that the department, has some serious structural issues, that things need to be changed. There's mistrust between the police and the community. How is the new superintendent doing?
The poor guy, he gets put into office 10 days, literally, after the state shut down because of COVID. And so he comes in with this, the goal of reforming Chicago, bringing homicides down to 300 for the year. That was his goal. And already we're at more than 500 halfway through the year. And again, it's because of COVID. Operating separate of COVID, he and Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot have enforced a new community policing effort. And the goal is to get more officers into communities where crime is prevalent. And it's a way to build trust with the police department and to hopefully quell violence, because when there's a presence there, violence does decline. That's the mantra right now, and we'll see if it makes it through the end of the year to keep the numbers down.
So, as you know, President Trump has been critical of the violence in Chicago since, I think, even before he was president. And certainly now, as he's in campaign mode, he's really been sort of using Chicago and other cities, though, as an example of how poorly things can go in, as he would put it, democratically run cities. I want to play a little sound of what he had to say about the city on Monday, and then we'll talk about it.
Chicago could use a hand. New York could use a hand. Although I'll tell you, if you let New York's finest and Chicago Police Department, they do a great job, but they're not allowed to do their work. You only see the bad. You see Portland and Chicago, and you see what's happened in New York. Oh, this radical left, crazy movement, but we can control it very quickly. They see a city like Chicago, where 78 people were shot and 13 died, or a city like New York, where the crime rate has gone through the roof, or a city like Portland, where the entire city is ablaze all the time, and a mayor says, we don't want any help from the federal government.
So the thing about, these sound bites from the president is he's sort of lumping Portland in with Chicago, with New York, as if all of the issues are the same. We've talked a lot about Portland here on CBSN. They are dealing with protests and demonstrations that have at times become violent, related to systemic racism in policing. Urban crime is a completely different issue, but the president lumps them all in together. And taking a look at your Illinois playbook, you sort of say, Chicago, get ready to be sort of exhibit A when the president wants to talk about cities gone bad.
Exactly. That's exactly what's been going on. Chicago has been a punching bag for Donald Trump since the beginning of his presidency. And you're right. The problem is very nuanced. You have crime. Gang warfare that has gone on in Chicago for years and has been under control. And David Brown, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, like their predecessors, are really trying to get a handle on that. And they have. The numbers are going down. Separately, you have the distrust in wake of the George Floyd killing. And even though Chicago is under a federal consent decree to improve the way it works and the way it handles itself as a police department, that renewed a lot of concern and has caused protests, which might get rowdy. I wouldn't say the protests have gotten violent. Separately, though, there's been looting. Maybe people feel emboldened because of the recent events that they can go out and loot, and that creates this idea of violence. So you've got like all these different levels going on, and you've got a Republican president trying to run a campaign that's a law and order campaign, focusing on democratic cities, democratic states, where meanwhile, Miami is also a city that has a high crime rate. In Florida, run by a governor. So there are lots of governors and Republican mayors who are experiencing the same thing. But it's easy to focus on Chicago or some of the Democratic-run cities to get his point across.
Yeah, Shia Kapos, we hopefully will be talking to you a few more times before this election, just about 60 days to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.